Hello, everybody. This is John Stamos, and I've been reading Endless Summer Quarterly for over 30 years. Damn, I'm getting old. Well, it's the best. You should read it too. Peace and love. Peace and love. Oh, Ringo says that.
Hi, welcome to Good Vibrations, a Beach Boys program. I'm your host, David Beard. Ron Vaccaro is not with me today. He's in Italy, so he's traveling. But I've replaced Ron with one of because I've got two special guests on today, Rick and Perry Cox. And if you're not familiar with them, I'm just going to do a really quick intro in terms so that everybody knows who you guys are. Perry was kind enough to write a great, insightful article for ESQ's Summer 2024 edition about the day down at Paradise Cove when all the original surviving Beach Boys came down to do the final segment that appeared on Disney Plus's Beach Boys documentary. And his brother Rick, to Perry's right, our left, is the owner of Dennis Wilson's original board. Well, and you guys are going to have to help me out a little bit with the history on this board because I believe, and help me out here, the board belonged to Louis Murata, if I'm remembering correctly. Is that right?
That is correct. Well, it belonged to Dennis, and then he ended up giving it to Louis to watch for him and take care of it, and until at such point he could come back and retrieve it, which never happened. He just eventually told him he could have it.
Yeah, exactly. In the mid 80s, he just said, look, just keep it.
Okay. Yes. His sister Lois had told me, if I'm remembering, over 20 years ago, like 2004 or 5, I interviewed a bunch of old neighborhood. Lois was Louis' sister, and then another girl whose name's escaping me, Mary Lou Manriquez, I believe her name was. But I learned all about Gil Lindner's house and how that was a whole. So that whole early day formation of the Beach Boys, transformative days of the Beach Boys history.
Yes, it was.
Is amazing. And we're going to look at the surfboard in just a little bit. But Rick, from your standpoint, tell me a little bit about how the whole day went down in terms of, did Perry contact you, you getting the board, and then the transportation of the board and just getting that, and what it, you're a collector. So first tell me, so this is two parts. One, what does it mean for you to have that history? And then two, the experience of going down to the beach.
Well, when my brother first called me, he actually mentioned that he had a friend which he had purchased through before and knew very well, Gary Johnson, and of Rockaway Records. And he said, Rick, Gary has his hands on and is trying to move the original Beach Boys surfboard, and you need to get it. And I thought it was a joke, actually, to be honest with you. And I was like, looked at him, seriously, really? He goes, no, Rick,
I was going, this album cover.
Exactly.
And
this album cover.
This picture.
Bingo.
Yeah, that's what I was doing.
He's showing me all this stuff, and I had goosebumps.
How significantly it was historically to the band.
Yeah, and it was hard to believe. And he goes, Rick, this is legit. It's real. This is the real thing.
One.
And so my question with a lot of it was, how much? And so he told me, and I'm like, okay, well, let me give that some thought. Perry goes, no, you need to make a decision because people are on this. So I made a quick decision, was able to acquire it. It was shipped here. When it got here, it was actually, again, massive goosebumps. And it didn't fit. I had the Smile Beach Boys, the one put out in 2000, I believe, Perry.
Yeah, they got 2012.
Yeah, 2011. So I had that
2011.
one, which is signed by the Beach Boys already. That was in my home.
You're familiar with that one? Yeah, redone. Yeah.
And they had actually given it to Perry, one of 8 that was made that was signed by the Beach Boys. And so he says, Rick, I just want you to put this in the museum. So I put it in my house because that's where all of this was at one time, or a lot of it. I couldn't get it all in there. So I had this building and I gutted it and built it and put everything in here. But so for the longest time, the Beach Boys surfboard hung in my garage. I have a really nice air-conditioned garage, and it hung in there with all the stuff under it. And it was concerning to me, obviously, even though it's alarmed and all that stuff, and it was air conditioned and all, but it's out in the garage. I just wanted to get it in here. So being able to move everything in here, it's just been unbelievable. I mean, to be able to have some of the things that I've been fortunate enough to get, especially with the Beach Boys, it's unreal, because having the original surfboard, having the story behind the surfboard, how all of this transpired and took place over all these years, and then wound up here, it's really amazing. So that was unbelievable to me, to be able to be a participant in that history of rock and roll.
And I remember at the Cove on September 5, when each of the Beach Boys would come and react to seeing it again.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, look, Denny's board.
Denny's
They
board,
noticed
that's
it
right.
right away.
Yeah.
That's Denny's board. And we got to hear that. Oh, yeah. And then little different stories coming from David, maybe a little
Yeah.
bit. They didn't
That's true.
always.
Jardine
That's
was-
true of everything. But
Jardine
they
was
were
the first one.
They were truly amazed
Yeah.
to see it. They were so happy that it was there. Frank Marshall insisted that it be there. He was
Right.
really the push behind making sure the real board got there. You know, they had a standby, which was
he had made.
yeah, they had a facsimile board waiting in case they could never find who we were or where that board was.
Okay.
But he said, here's his words: "I would have walked to Arizona to get it."
That's what he said. Correct.
That's what he said. To get it in this last, we won it in the final scene.
Yeah.
I wish it would have been shown a little more prominently in the final
Agreed.
scene, but it was still a big deal. It was more showing
It was
more in the
big to
promo
him
video
and big to
than it
the
was, yes. But
big
they were all thrilled to see
to
it,
the
and he
producer.
even, some of me was trying to make offers to buy it. If you ever do anything with it, but
Exactly.
anyway, it's
Yeah,
it's
that
kind
did
of-
happen. I
as a-
was concerned. I was really
they were
concerned.
kind of getting that way about it.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
and,
It
and
was a
so
big
we were
deal.
kind of saying, well, if we ever do, we got your number.
Right.
But they were generally, it was an amazing acquisition for people that like us, who really love its history, really appreciate what it is. We are bound to preserve it forever,
Right.
as far as we
Right.
live.
Right.
We'll be good stewards of it, and we love people like you that can appreciate it. That's why
Yeah.
we invite, of course, you to come whenever.
Right.
But
Yeah. You're
it-
family now, David.
it-
So
yeah,
whoever you have, whatever friends you have, you're welcome here at any
Oh,
time.
that's-
it's a
beautiful.
kingpin piece in this big museum of wonderful pieces, but it's a top piece in our heart,
Right.
for sure.
Right.
Yeah. So
And-
so let me stop you just for a minute. I apologize.
Absolutely.
But when you got the board for the first time, because when I hear you just talk about a surfboard, I never surfed myself, never owned a surfboard. But did you put your hands on the board and just kind of run your hand down the board and just feel like the board and the body of it, and just absorb that did you allow yourself to absorb that history?
Yes, actually, I did, Dave, because, and to give you an example, I surfed in the late 60s, early 70s.
Okay.
So when the board came and I'm actually holding the board in my hands and running my hands over the board, because they're totally different. They're made totally different today than they were then.
Also,
Right.
cool.
Yes. And so I'm holding this board and I'm going, this is an original board from way back, maybe the late 50s, very early 60s, obviously, because the
That's
pictures
what it
were in
was.
62.
Somewhere right in there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking to myself, this in and of itself is amazing, because some people have some of these stored somewhere in pristine condition and they weren't owned by Dennis Wilson.
Right,
But
right.
this one was.
They weren't on 2 album covers.
And they weren't on 2 album covers. This one was, and on some iconic albums of all time. So it was just unbelievable to be able to just say, this surfboard's in my hands. And I got my hands over the top of it, and it's the real deal. And as Perry talked about with Frank Marshall, the director for the film, he had this facsimile made. Of course, when he saw this one, he goes, oh my God, the one I had made didn't look anything like this.
Well, they used it at the premiere in the UK of the film. So if
Oh,
you
sure.
understand,
Yeah. Okay.
that is
Yep.
the facsimile.
Yeah,
because
that's
they
the
didn't
facsimile.
want to risk taking this there.
Right.
It was quite an ordeal to actually set up having this transported there. The reason that we were able to attend that entire day was because we decided it would be safest and best for us to take it. The original plan was to ship it, and they were going to put all this crazy insurance money on it.
Yeah.
So we said, no, why don't we just bring it? And that's what led to us being there all day.
Right. And the crazy insurance money, Dave, was 250 grand, which to me wasn't enough. So, and the reason I say that is because when you get there and you hear Frank Marshall talk about it and say, well, if it's ever available, and what was the
The underwriter. The big money man.
the big money man. This,
Yeah, I can't remember his name.
yeah,
Do you remember,
we don't.
David, who the big underwriter was?
There was a big underwriter.
Well,
He came
they
from
introduced him.
Dallas.
He financed pretty much.
Yeah,
put
he
up the brush
financed
for
it.
this
He
thing.
came in from Dallas, and he had 2 people with him, which I thought were his bodyguards. They were actually his pilots, and he had flown in. And you could tell. I mean, this guy had some money, but he had a cane, and very nice guy.
Very British. Very British.
Yeah, very nice guy. He's from Dallas, and he says he asked
British
Perry,
voice.
"Who owns this?"
Mhm.
And Perry
He
goes, "It's
does.
him."
He
And I'm
does.
going, "Uh-oh." And so he's,
I
"How
want
did
that.
you get it? How much did you
want
pay
that
for it?
board."
I need that board." And I'm going, "Uh-oh." And I looked at Perry, go, "It never would have got home. It would have gotten lost somewhere."
Yes.
Interestingly enough, they would not let anyone else carry it. So if it had to be carried to the
Yeah.
filming site, we had to do it. If it had to be carried to another point in the filming
Yeah,
site,
we
we
did
had
it.
to go do it.
Yeah,
They didn't want anything to do with chancing, dropping,
Right,
breaking, busting
right.
the fin, chipping.
right.
We handled it from start to finish,
Start to finish.
all day long.
Yeah. And it was Al Jardine originally when he first showed up, because it was Bruce Johnson who showed up first. But Al Jardine was the one, having been originally there. He was like, "Oh my
He actually wasn't
goodness."
there for that. First
Well,
shoot.
yeah, he wasn't for those
First
album
two,
covers. David Marks was there, and
Right.
Marks was
Al.
there, and
But-
David
but
was
it's-
there. He
And
was
David
I-
was the
he
first one to
recognized it
show
right
up.
I
away.
love
Oh,
I love that Al recognized it so quickly.
He did. He did.
Because that's it's interesting because
They all did.
when Carl passed, Richie Kanata related a story to me. He had gone in to the Beach Boys warehouse, and I guess he went over to like one of their brother record cases that they put the equipment in that they took on the road. And
Mhm.
he said he went over, he was retrieving some of his equipment, and he went in and he opened the case up, and it smelled like Carl. So
Wow.
yeah,
Very few people can know that one.
Wow.
That's amazing. Yeah.
that
Well,
so
I'm
there's
sure-
there's different things that trigger. The reason I bring it up is the way that things can and trigger not being a bad or negative word here. I know nowadays.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
It just
But, you know,
memories.
they
It's just
kind of-
memories.
It triggers memories.
Just memories.
Yes, and I really do like that Al, as soon as he saw the board, he knew that was Denny's board, and they all call him. Most of them call him Denny. When they think
They
of
do.
Denny,
You're right.
Dennis the Surfer, in those early days, they think of him as Denny.
Right.
And you know what? If you look at the albums and the little the signatures they did at like the
He
Broadway
did, right.
stores, it was Denny and sometimes Denny and Dennis Wilson.
Right.
He would do it twice or just Denny on the early signatures. That all
Right.
disappeared later.
Right.
I'm going to show you something. When Luis
Okay.
Murata had this board up in his rafters, he took the trouble to take a picture. This was down the street from the Wilsons, and
And
Yeah,
two-
it's just down the street.
Yeah. Right
Yeah,
across the street,
that's
2
it.
houses.
yeah,
2
2 houses down. And that
Now, was this in the rafters of his garage?
Yeah.
It is. That's
Yes.
the rafters of his garage. I'm going to find another one here. And
Please.
there is Luis there.
I've seen that. Okay, I've seen that photo. Yes.
Okay, and there he is, kind of putting it into position.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, let's see if I have any other nuggets here. I tried to
should
bring
be.
some. Here we
Yeah.
go.
There you go.
Oh, that's great. Now, who's he? Remind me who the person he's
I
standing.
think the boy is Brian Stafford.
Stafford. Yeah.
I think that's him. And it was in 1979. That's when Dennis gave it to Lewis, and in 1985 he gave it to Bob Stafford, who, upon his passing, Brian inherited it. Brian is the
Okay.
one that marketed it a few years later, and Rick bought it. That's
And
the
it showed
original
up on
thing.
Pawn Stars. Did you guys see that episode of Pawn Stars where the guy took
we
it?
briefed it, but we heard about it.
Okay.
But what did the Pawn Stars is so staged, but I don't think it was
Yeah.
ever really a serious
No,
acquisition.
I didn't get
Well,
that impression.
Because
either.
they do that a lot because it's entertainment. But they'll
Right.
come out and say, "We'll give you $5,000," and everybody laughs and the show's over.
Well, when you read the write up by Murata, he and Stafford, in particular, he says that the Pawn Stars thing never really.
No,
it didn't happen.
It was theater.
Yeah, it was all
There's-
Okay.
theater.
More Murata.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so you get the idea.
And
Yeah.
back in the day,
And that's the house.
Dave, just so you know, when they built, this is in the 50s, early 60s, they would build a home and there was sheetrock on the ceilings of everything but the carport.
Okay.
That's
No
true.
joke.
They didn't finish
And
the carports.
So
the,
what he was
garages.
doing was literally just
And the
sliding
rafters.
the board,
Where the
surfboard
sheetrock
right up-
should have been. Yeah.
Bingo. Now, of
Yeah.
course, they wouldn't do that today because people be climbing up in your attic and accessing your
Yeah.
home, right?
That's where
But
the air
back
conditioners
in the
were.
day, They didn't do that. There was nothing there, and you could just climb into the
It
attic.
would be a piece of plywood and the surfboard.
Bingo. And that's pretty much what it was, which
So,
was amazing.
I have to ask just a silly question. It's a silly
Yes.
question to me. Rick, have you thought about taking it out and going out and surfing with it?
You know, it's funny that you say that, because the first board I ever surfed on was a long board like that.
Okay.
And it was very, very enjoyable. It was in California. I enjoyed it tremendously. And then they wound up building a surfing place here in Tempe
Big Surf.
called Big Surf.
Big Surf, yeah.
And so I used to go there and surf all the time. Matter of fact, in 1971, Rod Stewart played at Big Surf. And my wife and I were literally, everybody was standing up, but my wife and I were there watching Rod Stewart and
Do his thing.
yeah, do his thing. It was interesting.
Wow.
So
Wow.
pretty cool.
So you're familiar with Beach Boys music. You then end up with the board that is historically on the Surfer Girl album and the Surfin' Safari album cover.
Right.
And it also makes its appearances on some picture sleeves.
Yes.
It does.
Did you then find yourself, once you got the board, did you kind of then purposely put on those records to kind of immerse yourself a little bit? Like, I mean, did you have that little, for lack of a better way of putting it, kind of that geek, that fan, like connective tissue to, I've got the board now I want to listen to the music that was made in that period?
Yeah, so I basically downloaded the albums onto my music app on my phone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Spotify or whatever.
And so that's how I did it, and just started immersing myself, going back, you know, because in 62, I was 9. In 63, I was born in 53, I was 10. But I still listened, you know, and the Beach Boys music was still being played. And my parents didn't mind it. It was when the Beatles came out and they had the long hair that became a problem.
Until they heard "And I Love Her," and yesterday they go, "Wait till that's over and you put the Beatles back on." I said, "That is the Beatles."
That is the Beatles.
They started liking them with yesterday.
Yeah.
I remember that specifically.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. So it was interesting. And then, of course, you know, other rock and roll people come out. Jimi Hendrix, Led Zeppelin. My parents were, oh my God.
But what a day.
Yeah. Unbelievable day.
And look at this, David. At the first album cover, what could the budget have been? The lighting wasn't right. It's a little out of focus. That made the final cut for the album.
I know.
There's dark images and shades that they would never allow today. But I love it for that reason. That's why I love the first album cover better than all of them.
And when you go down to Paradise Cove, that was my first time ever there.
No kidding.
Oh my goodness. What another time.
To show up with that board, and that's your first time there?
That was his first time there.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Hey, you know what, David? This is a little known fact. This guy, this isn't even a joke. He actually was such a trooper. He was deathly ill.
Yeah, I was
coming to my door to take me there. He says, "I'm doing this, live or die." And he was like probably at 103, 104 flu.
Yeah.
It was awful. I had
Actually,
to drive all the way.
yeah.
He was sleeping the whole way. The next day, miraculously, on September 5, the day of the shoot, he was perfect.
Yeah.
The next day, sick again.
That's
a true story.
Yeah,
he
what
really
I had
covered just for that event, and then got sick again and finished.
Previously, Dave, I had a pancreatic attack.
Okay.
A few years previous, and then it was back. And so I had another one, and when I got back, by that following Monday, I was in the hospital for 4 days.
But the day on the shoot,
the day on the shoot,
have known. And he wasn't in a lot of the pictures because he did it on purpose. Said that's your day. And I
Yeah.
said,
Well, you mentioned that to me, Rick.
Yeah, so that's why I sent those pictures that I took.
Yeah,
He would have them
I felt so bad, and I felt horrible. I was trying to take all the pictures I could, but
and he just kept
I just
shooting
didn't want anybody seeing in my face like, he doesn't look like he's happy to be there. I'm just trying to live. Yeah.
But you know what? That turned out to be one of the most magical, fun days we ever had together as brothers in our life. And with the Beach Boys being so warm and so welcoming and so friendly and so great memories and happy to see me and even calling me by name. I was very touched. That day was special.
What was the guy with the gloves on that said
Jerry Schilling?
Jerry Schilling.
Yeah, he was there.
He's a wonderful soul.
He was wonderful.
Yeah, and he was talking to Perry, loved Perry.
We sat with Mike's wife, Jacqueline, at the inside the tent when they were doing the dailies, and just chatted away and talking about what an amazing talent Mike would talent. How about drive?
Exactly. The amount she's talking about the drive he had. She goes, "Oh, he'll die on
He's
stage.
already the most traveled man in the
In the
history of the
world.
world. Nobody's gone more miles. Nobody's done
Nobody's
more live
done
shows. And this
more
guy,
live shows.
I asked Bruce, I said, is he ever going to retire? When he falls over on stage and is gone. That's when
Right.
he'll retire. And I believe it. What a work ethic.
And
that
a
man.
great
He
guy.
is incredible. I'm
He
telling you,
just
Mike
very-
is amazing.
Very good guy. Enjoyable to speak with him and Jackie. All of them were.
Yeah, they were
David
amazing.
Marks,
It was an
Bruce,
amazing day.
Al Jardine. Very, very nice people. Enjoyable to speak with.
Call time was 9 a.m., David.
Yeah.
Of course, him and I are there like two little humble soldiers, not
Yeah.
wanting to know
8
which way to
o'clock.
do anything. I'd never done it before. And we see all the set and everything like the story
Oh,
goes.
yeah. All
But-
kinds of.
But we didn't make a move until we were told, because I didn't want to, I didn't know how we are going to be received. Oh, no, you can't come near the talent. We didn't
Mhm.
know. And they were so welcoming. And
Yeah.
It was just warm. And it
David
was fun,
Marks
and we
was
were all high
extremely
fiving and hugging
welcoming.
at the end. It was a
Bruce
great,
Johnston.
great day.
Al.
Yeah, unbelievable.
They were,
And their
they were
wives,
just nice.
The one that didn't have access, because he was kind of just coming off the worst of his dementia diagnosis, was Brian. He was ushered behind the restaurant, straight to the scene in the chairs, straight back to the car and out.
Right.
That's the extent of Brian.
Yeah.
But he
And
did do the scene, and
Yeah.
there's a lot in the scene in the film. I don't know. You saw the raw footage. I hope you did by now. Where they actually sing some songs together. One of
Yeah.
them works really well. They start laughing. No
That's-
bad blood. It was magical,
Yeah.
and yet somehow that didn't make it in the film.
Right.
I
Right.
think that's because Brian wasn't mic'd.
Oh, he wasn't mine. Was that a mistake?
I haven't asked that philosophical question of anybody.
I
but-
asked the other day. I asked Brian Morrison, the director,
Yeah.
is there any plans for DVD, any kind of DVD release? He said at this point no plans. I said, well, that's where the extra footage can go,
Right.
if they ever do it. I think maybe if it ever concludes its Disney run, they might consider a tangible format.
I'm trying to remember. I didn't ask Brian. I asked Jeannie
Elizabeth was another one.
Elfant, or I think her name is.
Mhm.
And she and I were in touch a lot right after the premiere, and she
Yes.
helped assist me get additional questions answered from Frank. And I can't remember who it was channeled to or how it was asked, but I mean, I asked the question because I was doing a follow-up ESQ, and I asked, what are the plans here? Because, that's everybody's wanting that footage, including Al, by the way, who I thought was
And me.
very fair in publicly during that whole press
Right.
jump when he was sitting with Frank and Mike Love.
Mhm.
Al was very vocal about it and says, I really do want to see those that come out where we're sitting there singing together.
I was the same way
Right.
about that.
And, I think all the fans were, because that ended up being one of the most endearing and special
Agreed.
moments. of the
I have to
entire
admit,
thing.
Dave, I was shocked. I was shocked when it wasn't in the final film, because Alan was really the one behind making sure he motivated them to start singing together.
What-
He brought the guitar
Right.
with the intent of doing it. And I told him after the shoot, I said, you did a good job, Alan. You did a good job. And he goes, thank you. He goes, I tried hard to get them to start singing, and then they started enjoying it. And how that didn't make the cut, I was very shocked.
Yeah,
by it.
and I'll tell you, when we were
Lot of
under the
magic.
tent watching that, Dave, Al starts playing, and to
Yeah.
see Brian
Join in.
join in, I had water, and so Schilling looks at Perry and he goes, "Why is he crying?"
He said, it's a magic moment.
And
He's taking it.
I
in.
was overwhelmed with emotion.
Yeah.
It was
incredible.
such a really neat thing to see them all join in, and it was such a great emotional moment because they were all connected. They
And
were all
laughing
spiritually
and
there
upbeat.
and
And
upbeat. It was
no
awesome.
animosity. ever.
Wow, it was unbelievable.
Just like old friends and brothers.
Hey,
That's what it was
That
like.
is
It was amazing.
So meaningful. That, man, you just gave me goosebumps. That's so
It was
meaningful
incredible.
to hear from me, just to hear that was your reaction. Because I can tell you, just now, in you sharing that with me, I felt Audrey Wilson's presence. So thank you.
Yeah.
It was
Thank you.
awesome.
But you know what,
But
David?
he knew all this stuff.
Knowing
and,
you the way
know.
I know, knowing David the way we know,
Yeah.
we wish you would have been with us.
Oh, that would have.
That's
You
what we
would have.
wish.
I
You would have
would've-
deserved to be there.
You deserved to be there. You
And they
should
would have loved seeing you too.
Yeah.
More than me,
Yeah.
for sure.
Oh, just, well,
And Lee. You and Lee
well, I'll
both.
tell you, it was a, Perry, I'm pretty sure I told you this, but I have never reformatted an edition of ESQ 5 times. Ever. Except the summer ESQ of last year.
Wow.
Because I actually had done an entire Jeffrey Foskett issue. It was all done. It was completely filled out. And then all this stuff was going on. The book, the Genesis Publications book had come
Sure.
out.
Right.
The
It
Disney
snowballed, yeah.
thing came up, and then they got me into the press junket where I got the 5 or 10 minutes was through
Got it.
the video. But
Sure.
then I got follow-ups with everybody, and it started to fill out. And then Perry sent me this article out of the blue.
Out of the blue.
Right.
No idea it was coming, and a little birdie tells me Brian Morrison may have had something to do with that. But
You know,
I'm glad. I don't know. So tell
let
me how
explain.
that happened.
Here's how it happened. Nobody knew I was going to do that. Not even Brian Morrison knew that I was going to do that. What I did was, I just remember thinking to myself, this is fresh. I know the feeling and the mood of every moment of that day. I better document this.
Right.
And when I was done with it and I went back through it and I wanted to make sure it was as good as I could make it for me,
Right.
I sent it to you. You were the first one I thought of. And I said, you are the one that will handle this properly. You
Right.
know what I'm trying to say.
And would appreciate it.
And then Brian Morrison got a copy of it, and he contacted me right away, telling me how much he appreciated the fact that I documented the day that he didn't have time to document, but he related to everything that happened. Every mood of
awesome.
the moment being documented is what he appreciated.
Well, I thought maybe Brian might have had something to do with it, only because, before it ever came out, one of the things, because I helped a little bit here and there with the documentary. So
Sure.
on the way of the journey, he knew that I really wanted to do something that was a companion piece to the documentary. And so the summer edition almost got there thanks to you. I mean, it added something that speaks to what ESQ is all about. ESQ is giving something to the fan base that they can't get anywhere else. And so
True.
You do it better than anybody
Yeah.
in any other music
Great.
genre,
Great
period.
magazine.
How do you think you got all
Unbelievable.
5 Beach Boys to do a video for you? That's no
Exactly.
one's ever been able to
Nope.
do that. I was told once by Bruce when they did for my book in 2017 when they wrote those little blurbs. He said, "How did you get that done?" I said, "Well, really, the truth is, I had Jeff Foskett help me
Jeff,
get that
yeah.
one, and I knew Alan from previous. But for you to get the videos promoting yours, they are finally just feeling the love that you put into this. It can't be the money.
Right.
I recognize your passion too. That's why they did it. And no one
Exactly.
else has ever been able to get the Beach Boys to do what you and Lee have done with them.
That's pretty amazing.
They love you guys. And this is what we love about the Beach Boys. They can be your friend, even if you're just a nobody.
Right.
I was just a collector. They went on to embrace me.
Right.
And I wasn't anybody.
And asked you to
no
do
other
something
band does
about
that.
them.
Who
Yeah.
does that, David?
Yeah.
Nobody. Beach Boys do that.
they do. They're well,
They're
and
wonderful.
I've heard you say this twice, and I'm only just now in our discussion about how when they were together at Paradise Cove, there was no animosity or anything. And what people, I don't know if fans really understand this, but they're generally speaking, there is no animosity.
I agree with that. I think
Correct.
that's trumped up by the media
It is
and
trumped
their
up.
lawyers and whatever else. And sometimes they don't
Well-
even know they're mad at each other until they pick up the paper.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but part of that too, Dave, I think gets into play. Whereas Perry said, and as you know, people are if somebody, if Brian's not traveling with them, if this guy's not traveling with them, well then they hate each other. That's not true.
No.
They
They're-
just
they're-
some people get fried, they get burnt out, they're just done. Doesn't mean they don't love the music, they don't love the other people, they've just moved on.
The music is the unifying
Bingo.
I
foundation.
totally agree. That's the
Bingo.
glue. I
100%.
talked to Mike one time, and everybody asked him this question: how can you possibly enjoy or not get sick of playing Surfin' Safari
Oh,
for
yeah.
63
Years.
years? And he goes, "It's like a movie that you know is great, but one of your friends has never seen it, and
Right.
it comes back alive for you while they're watching it. That's
And
the
he
key.
feels
So when he
that.
reaches out, it comes back alive to
Right.
him." And that's part of the secret of how he can still do it and enjoy
I
it. Because
agree.
whenever I see him, I'm still amazed by him.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
still
I've
got a
seen him
great
sick.
voice.
I've seen him sick
Yeah.
on stage still.
Yeah.
This guy won't stop.
No.
I wouldn't
But he
want to imagine
appreciates
having
the
him your
fans.
boss.
And they
He
are
loves fans. He loves
they
his fans.
are saying he's the reason that people today know about the Beach Boys.
Every concert he does,
Yeah.
no telling how many new fans go tell other new fans that
Right.
create other new fans.
And all these
He's
kids.
largely responsible for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They're
So
into
there you
it.
go.
It's great.